Greetings, you're listening to the Cold Call Lawcast, the Minnesota Law School podcast featuring students from the University of Minnesota Law School, the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and the Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law. Welcome everyone to the Cold Call Lawcast. I'm Mitch, a law student at the University of St. Thomas School of Law, and with me are my co-hosts Hannah.
Hey!
From the University of Minnesota Law School, Anthony.
Hello.
From the Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law, and Abby.
Hello.
From the University of Minnesota Law School. On today's podcast, we'll be discussing pop culture, and we're also going to be talking to Will, who's a 2L at the University of Minnesota Law School.
Hello.
He's also a self-described 90s pop culture expert. Am I right about that?
Well, I know a lot. I don't know if I'd call myself an expert, but I know a fair amount, I think.
Aficionado?
Yeah, I think that's
Aficionado?
appropriate. Yeah.
That's a good one. All right, let's talk to you, Will. First, we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, and specifically, what did you do before you came to the University of Minnesota Law School?
Well, I'm originally from Riverside, Illinois, which is a small suburb just outside Chicago. I did my undergrad at the College of Worcester, where I received a degree in English. I actually graduated in 3.5 years, which I think I did pretty well.
Yeah, that's doing well.
And after that, there was sort of a lull. And then I worked as an intern for the Government Relations Department of the National Education Association, which is basically their lobbying branch. And after I did that, I sort of decided that I wanted to work in D.C. in sort of that policy field. Basically I wanted to do what I was doing as an intern, but actually be paid better for it. The internship was an unpaid. But
right, and do it in Washington.
Do it in D.C.
And so when you were in Illinois, were you lobbying the local government then?
No, I wasn't working for the NEA when I was in Illinois. It was a D.C. internship.
Okay.
That I became aware of because based on my father's career, my father was a political figure in Illinois for a few years, so he had a few connections and he knew some things that were going on. And so after I graduated from the College of Worcester and spent some time, he asked me, there's this internship that the NEA is having, are you interested? And I'd always sort of been interested in politics and news and in that sort of world. I think you sort of have to be if that's what your father does. You're just in that world. And so, of course, I would have been interested no matter what. But at that point, I just graduated from college and I didn't have a job. And so they say, do you want to do this? As long as it's not, horrifying, your answer is going to be yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'll go to D.C. Great. But it ended up working out, way better than I could have anticipated. I really loved being there. And after that, I decided to pursue a graduate program. So I got a master's degree in legislative affairs, which is basically a master's degree in how Congress is supposed to work, where really you learn why it doesn't work. I'm not kidding. That was like half of my classes. The first class I had was a Congress and PAC courses where they taught us campaign finance law. Approximately half the class was, this is a joke. This is nothing. This is a hole you can drive a truck through.
Right. And where did you take those? Where did you go for your master's?
In D.C.
Okay.
At GW. It's
cool.
Sort of program, I think, that is unique to that school.
Hey, Will, quick question. Worcester, is that like the sauce?
Worcester. No,
Worcester.
It's spelled the way an American would spell that word.
Which is?
Wooster.
Oh, Worcester, like rooster.
Oh, yeah.
With a
How about
W.
I'm a
Okay.
Worcester?
Where was that Massachusetts? Where is that?
It's in Ohio.
Oh. Okay,
It's
so
a small liberal arts school out in Ohio. It's sort of near Oberlin.
Okay.
It's that kind of a school. Where I think in any other school I probably would have gotten a history degree, but Worcester had a really strong English department, and so that's how I ended up in that field.
Cool. And so after you graduated from GW with your master's, what did you do after that?
Well, I tried to look for work in D.C. for a while, but it turns out that it is really hard to get a job in D.C., especially then. And
What kind of jobs were you looking for at the time?
sort of public policy research jobs.
Okay.
Think tank kind of positions,
Okay.
Basically, like I said, more high-paying intern jobs. But the truth is you're either an intern or you are someone with a PhD who's been working for 30 years. There wasn't a lot of, like, mid-level jobs. I mean, that's the classic millennial problem. And then, in the middle of my search for a job, Donald Trump won the presidential election, which sort of impacted my plans.
In which you were like, yes, go Trump, right?
Well, Federalist Society wasn't hiring. You didn't
try for a position there?
No.
I think most of the people that they hire are inexperienced.
But at that point, I was ready to leave. I'd been looking for work for a while, and I was, looking for a new path. And law school was a very natural development from my graduate program. Plus, there'd always been a certain instinct that I would end up in the law. I mean, that's what my family does. My parents are lawyers. I have an uncle who's a lawyer. It's sort of a world I've always sort of been in to some extent.
Right, and we were talking about this earlier, that, both of your parents are lawyers, so it was pretty much a destiny for you to become a lawyer, right?
My father always said that I was a natural lawyer in his eyes.
Okay.
But I am glad that I waited to do it. I think that having waited a few years made me better prepared for the law school experience that I might otherwise have been. It's funny looking back. I think that I needed that time to just mature. You would think after 3 years of college you would be, ready for the real world, but I don't think I really was immediately. I think I needed that time to sort of explore and get ready. And I think it's important that I went to law school because I find the ideas interesting versus my father telling me, you need to do this.
Right.
I don't think that's a pleasant experience for anybody.
And so where did your parents go to law school?
My father went to Kent, Chicago, Kent, and my mother went to Washington University in St. Louis.
Where all did you apply, and what was your process of applying to different law schools?
I applied to so many places, like I think most people do.
Okay.
I had some sort of family help editing my application letters, but mostly I focused on, what I learned in grad school. Plus, I had a really interesting experience the first year of my graduate program where I lived in a student housing that was almost entirely made up of students from Howard University, which is an all-black, traditionally black university, which is a very sort of fish-out-of-water experience coming from, the suburbs of Chicago to being, the one white guy in a very African-American community. And so I wrote about that. I wrote about my experience in graduate school and with the NEA. This was the second time I actually tried to apply to law school. I tried to apply right out of college, and I wrote a really bad application letter because I didn't know what I was talking about because all I knew was college.
Right.
So I had no real life experience. I had nothing to really compare it to. All I could say is, I'm an English major, and I know how to read. And I know that being a law student means I need to know how to read. And that was basically the gist of my first letter.
Wait, Will, this is interesting to me. So, and I know you probably know the history of, it's Riverside, right,
yeah.
Where you're from? So we were talking about this in my land use class this week, actually, about sort of the epidemic of white flight in, the later half of the 20th century. Do you know if Riverside was one of the communities where that happened?
I don't think in particular. It's not one of the key suburbs where that happened. Where you really saw that was places that are nearby, like Cicero and Berwyn. The demographics of Riverside, Riverside is a little bit upscale, so it was never a place that had sort of a community to flee to. I guess it depends what you're meaning. I sort of reversed that in my head.
Right. I guess either way, did people flee to Riverside? Were there, as far as you know, mechanisms that they put in place to try and control the makeup of the city?
I'm not aware of any mechanisms, but by virtue of being what it is, there was always a little bit of an exclusivity there, which ties into that. Riverside was originally designed to be sort of a resort town. It was designed to be a place that people in Chicago would have places to sort of go out during the summer. It's kind of funny. Apparently, back in the 19th century, there were no mosquitoes there. Not true now.
So it's like a ritzy burb. Like, did you go to school with a bunch of famous people? Or like students or kids of politicians?
Well, I went to school with me and my sister, so technically...
You were the ritzy
So
politicians.
what kind of politician was your father? Was he a representative? Or
he was a state rep,
Okay.
but he also ran for lieutenant governor, and he was also, back in the 80s, he was chief legal counsel of the governor.
Oh, cool.
And then my grandfather was a TV reporter called Len O'Connor, his father. So
Dynasty boy.
yeah, like he interviewed the Kennedys. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And so you've been at the U of M for 2 years now. So what have been kind of your best and worst parts of your experiences at the University of Minnesota Law School?
Or yeah, he's a 2L. So
2L, yes.
A year and some change.
Yeah, a year and some change. Well, that's kind of difficult. I mean, I've really enjoyed the experience more than I would have thought I did.
Knowing Hannah, what has been your
Another
worst
section
experience?
C, shout out.
Yeah, we're both, Hannah and I, in the same section. Yeah,
It's just been all peachy.
it's been good. I mean, I definitely have had some bad days, but I don't know whether that's just law school. I mean, some of that's just me. Like, I sometimes suffer from pretty bad insomnia where I just can't sleep for no reason, and that's never pleasant to deal with.
Is it like tests, like stress from like tests and
Sometimes
stuff
it's
like that?
anxiety, other times it's just my brain saying, "Ha ha, you're not falling asleep tonight." You think you're getting sleep. No, you're not.
What about tort, Will? Would you put that among your best experiences?
Yeah, tort was great. I mean, I was a theater kid in high school, so it was nice to sort of do that again.
Are you going to do it this year?
I am. I was on the writing committee, so I helped write the script.
Oh, cool. Well,
So
we
maybe
haven't
you guys-
talked about it yet,
yeah.
so give a quick like plug.
Yeah, so what is it when you say torts, are you talking about the class?
No,
Or
it's
are you talking
it's
about-
like the theater program at the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
Tort is an acronym that means
Theater of the Relatively Talentless.
And so tell us a little bit about this torts musical program.
Well, it's sort of a really fun musical that the students put on. It's student-written, student-directed. The director, actually, this year is somebody who's in our year, which is kind of interesting.
wait, who's directing?
Marissa Tillman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, they always say you're pledged to secrecy, but the sort of posters are out, so I think I can say what the posters say. So it's a sort of Beauty and the Beast variation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, last year it was Top Gun, right? So
Yeah.
it was Top Gunner. They always do like a parody,
Yeah.
usually on like a major film.
Yeah.
So it was Top Gunner, and then this year it's Beauty and the Beast, but what's it called?
Tale as Old as Time, which for some reason is not copyrighted, which I would have assumed it was. Like, when they proposed that title, I thought, no, we're going to get sued if we use that title. Don't do that. But apparently not.
Tale as Old as Time is open? All right, change the name of the podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go. So you talked about tort.
Yeah.
What else has been kind of the best parts about being at the University of Minnesota?
Well, I mean, I think it's just a really great environment to learn. Like, it's really supportive. It's really, I mean, the classes I find interesting. I guess I'm weird like that. I really haven't had a class where I didn't find at least something in there interesting. Even what was, I think, my least favorite class.
Were professors, did they have a lot of influence in how you enjoyed class? Or
In that
not?
class, yes.
Okay.
And I'll
Wait.
leave it
Not
at
naming
that.
names
Which
or anything.
well, you don't have to name names.
Not naming
but off
names,
the
but-
record, I'm taking property next semester.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if there are a lot of professors where people are split. I loved JTY. Many people did not feel the same.
It's nothing personal for me. It's not like, personal animosity. I guess, that sort of style of criticism is what I was afraid of before I went to law school.
What do you mean by style of criticism? Like the cold calls?
Not
and
just
then-
cold call, but sort of the general attitude of, you are a moron unless you demonstrate otherwise.
Yeah, some teachers are more old school, but I don't know, personally, I feel like it's interesting to have some of that old school flavor because it's like if you watch a movie like The Paper Chase or something like that, and you get the real, and we've talked about this some before, like Anthony, you said you have some professors like this where it's like they are just made of ice and steel, and like they will just try and cut you down.
They're
And I think it's
searching
good.
for you to screw up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, it was a good experience to go through that.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to replicate it.
Yeah, most of them too are like really not that bad. So I don't know. I've appreciated having a